I think people have a hard time believing that we could actually be misdirected by authorities, that we could be misdirected to be thrown off the scent, off the trail. I will tell you that I believe that does happen. I think that misdirection is very pervasive.
Price, what it, price, price is the
This is the
greatest tool of
greatest tool of
misdirection.
misdirection. It is. You're right. And that if you want to misdirect the public, that's all you got to do. Like I often say, I live in a neighborhood where the guy across the street from me is one of the biggest money managers in Florida. He's in the Forbes top 50 list. And the only time he ever asked me about gold and silver is when the price is down.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
and he wouldn't know a gold eagle that fell on his foot. Now, this is a guy
yeah.
that manages $4 billion.
Yeah.
$4 billion. The public has no idea what's coming. And the recency bias and the normalcy bias that, look, if you've been a broker over the past, 20, 30 years, you've lived through nothing but boom time, where since 1982, interest rates have gone straight down until just recently, making selling equities and bonds a very, very lucrative deal, and one where you have a very good chance of doing well by your customers. Let's see what happens when interest rates massively go the other direction. And I think there'll be a very big problem. So you have the majority of this country asleep at the wheel. You have the majority of this country not owning any physical precious metals. And you see, again, deficit after deficit after deficit. You see supply dwindling off the exchanges. And the one thing that's really strange about all of this is that right now the retail and wholesale industry is flush with product, and premiums are as low as they've been in 4 years. I look at that as bottoming out. This cannot last when you see deficit after deficit after deficit and the exchanges being bled dry. It's that the public hasn't been shaken up yet enough to realize that the banks aren't safe, brokerages aren't safe, that traditional investments need to be reevaluated. Even the best laid plans need to be reevaluated. That 60-40 split, how's that working out for you right now, where the 10-year treasury has lost 50% of its value over the last couple of years, and where the equity markets have done not a whole lot unless you're in the top 7 stocks that are holding up the entire indices. So, I just think the bottom line is this: it's getting real. And I think people need to understand, when you see United Arab Emirates stop taking dollars for oil, we are this close to the shit hitting the fan. And then when it happens and it breaks the fragile banking system, which is massively, massively over leveraged and undercapitalized, and all of a sudden rates spike and you see banks fall one by one by one by one, and the bail-ins that no one knows about, Google bail-in, Google the Dodd-Frank Act, and see what happens when people lose all their money in their bank accounts. And like that, people say, my God, where can I put my money? Oh, gold and silver. Oh, too bad. Can't find it anymore. Because in a matter of days, when you see that kind of demand, it would bleed dry the entire industry. And that people, right now is very flush.
And people might say, oh, that's impossible. But look what happened with Wall Street Silver early February 2021. Nobody could buy. APMEX was not taking orders. One of the biggest places, they literally said, we cannot take orders. JM Bullion, you would be in the add to cart, it would freeze. Every site was breaking down.
Want to know why that happened? You know why that happened? You know why that happened? I'll tell you why that happened. So I lived in Minnesota then, and I moved to Florida subsequently. My parents rented a house in Boca Grande Island, which is on the other side of Florida. It's over on the Gulf side. And my dad called me up and he said, your mom and I rented a house. We've been here a week. I'm bored shitless. So bring your family down. You can have the house. I'm going home. Oh, by the way, we just bought a condo in Fort Lauderdale, he said. And so, we're going to be down here more often. I said, great. So I packed up my family. So we're going on a vacation. I had no idea that what I'm about to tell you is going to happen. Zero. And so we pack up to go on a vacation. When we land in Florida, this is in the middle of COVID, when everything's locked down, when Minneapolis led the nation in defunding the police, and the city became a very frightening place, a place that I was not proud of any longer. And I land and I find out that Governor Walz from the state of Minnesota wants to raise income tax to 10%. I call my dad. And I say, we're at the house. Thank you very much. Give me the number of your real estate agent. And now I'm there for 10 days. That night, Silver Squeeze happens. The only time in 10 days I left that house was to go across the state to Delray Beach to look at the house that I live in now. And I left for a vacation. I came back with a new house. I had no idea. But that Friday night, when this all started, my head trader called me up and he said, things are getting crazy. How long do you think we should go into the weekend? What he meant by that is how many COMEX contracts should we buy at 5,000 ounces a piece so that we can sell product over the weekend? Because you could sense things were heating up and things were changing. And so I said, I don't know, how about 11? So he bought 11 COMEX contracts, which meant that we were 55,000 ounces long, which means that anyone who wants, because the market closes on Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. And it sleeps until roughly 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, where it opens in Asia. That's the only time it's closed, that period. It's called the access market, where if you can take orders, but you better be hedged unless you're concerned that the price might open up higher. So we buy 11 COMEX contracts into the weekend, having no idea what silver squeeze really is going to be. This is on a Friday. And so Friday night, I'm doing interviews with Wall Street Silver and with Arcadia Economics and David Morgan. And I mean, literally for 10 days straight, I worked 18, 20 hours a day, never left a room, never went outside. My kids hated me except to go across the island to buy a house. And I'm working nonstop, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and interviews. And it was just, I've never experienced anything like it to this day. And so my head trader calls me up. Well, first of all, I get calls from people Friday night saying, do you see JM Bullion and ATMEX are no longer taking any orders? They've stopped taking orders. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. My head trader calls me the next morning, Saturday morning, at about 6:30 in the morning. And he says, dude, he says, we bought 11 contracts yesterday, 55,000 ounces long. You sold 90,000 ounces last night. You are naked. You are exposed by 45,000 ounces to the open price. And now it's Saturday. People are saying the price of silver is going to gap up 20 bucks, whatever. And I'm thinking, holy shit, we're 45,000 ounces exposed. And that could bankrupt the company if it really gapped up, right? And luckily we were able to hedge it right away. But when it opened up $2. It cost me over $90,000. And that's what happens when you sell more than you have hedged long. And so all of those companies, the reason they shut down was because they could not hedge the exposure into the unknown. Well, that's exactly what will happen. We will wake up on a Monday morning to find the price gapped way higher for whatever reason. Maybe it's OPEC dumping the dollar or whatever it may be. And it's a system that when I left Minnesota, not only would I have bet anyone in the world that I'm not going to not come back and sell my house immediately. I'm going on a vacation, not to buy a new house, but it happened. But by the same token, I watched some of the biggest companies in America, myself included, stop taking business. We shut down on Saturday. I said, no more. Saturday and Sunday couldn't take any orders until it opened up and we could hedge our position and go long. But I'll tell you, that's how fast things change, like that. And in one night, it overwhelmed the industry. Well, what happens if the shit really hits the fan this time? In one night, the entire industry will sell out of product. Because what you and I and the people listening to this show are, sun in my face, we're the pimple on the elephant's ass. When the elephant, which being the public, says, oh my God, that bank just failed in, they lost everything. And they run to the safety of something like precious metals in your own possession. I'm telling you, and I mean this honest to God, in a period of 24 hours or less, it will bleed dry the entire industry. There's that much money out there. And one really, really wealthy guy could destroy the whole retail industry
They did. They did. Look at the Hunt brothers.
Well, and you know something? Speaking of that, the Hunt brothers realized that there were far more contracts issued than there were bars behind it. So do you know what the open interest is right now on the registered category? The registered category of COMEX are the bars that are held for delivery, backing the contracts that are issued. It is rehypothecated 1,790%, call it 1,800%. That means 1 out of 18 get their silver, the rest gets force majeure cash settlement. That close to the whole system blowing up. And, you know, the little boy who cried wolf has been saying this forever. And I'm on the cover of the little boy who cried wolf, but the last page, the wolf comes. And I'm telling you, mathematically, economically, and sprinkling of real old school logic, the wolf is coming. Don't know when or how. But if you're not already in position, you got about 30 seconds to do so.
Yep.
To put your head between your knees,
Yep.
and you know, kiss your ass goodbye type of thing.
Yep.
I hope it doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry for using profanity. I shouldn't do that, but I'm very serious about this, and I want people to understand that this is a very serious event, which we just saw.
We're trying to help people.
Like very
when we say this stuff, like we're trying to genuinely help people. Like we're urging people to take control of your wealth. Like even those contracts. All those people think they own that ounce somewhere, but the only person that actually owns it is the one holding it in their bare hands. Like I always say, like if you can't hold it, you don't own it. If you cannot hold it, you do not own that. You think you do, but you don't.
I believe that counterparty risk will be one of the nastiest phrases people will ever hear over the next year. Not only do you have $112 billion in the emergency funding program that the banks have borrowed into, that is due to sunset or be paid back in March, but you have the most important election of this country's history.
Yeah.
Coming in 2024, and all of the craziness that's going to go along with it.
I haven't heard many people talk about that.
Oh, that's coming. It'll be all that we talked about pretty soon. But, you know, 2024 is going to be a year, I think, to go down in the history books.
Yeah.
And
I made a video about that.
So being able to buy metal right now at the lowest premium and best availability we've seen in 4 years, it will go down, in my mind, is one of the biggest mysteries of my career. How is it that when you and I talk offline and we have these great conversations about fundamentals and economics and stuff, how is it that people don't see that who are completely sophisticated in finance is beyond me? And I think it will go down as one of the biggest mistakes that people will have made financially, because even the best laid plans need to be reevaluated. And to me, this is one of those times where you need to reevaluate things. And again, the United Arab Emirates will no longer take dollars for oil. I want people to think about that for a minute. What happens if it's Saudi Arabia and OPEC? What happens when every country on the planet who's had to stockpile dollars no longer needs to, and they sell them? People think inflation is only an increase in the money supply. That is the technical definition of it. It is. But in this case, if there's God knows how many more times dollars outside the country, 50 times more, I don't know, because everyone's had to own them for 50 years to buy oil and they no longer need to, and they throw them back home. What happens when there's the money supply in this country increases tenfold? 50-fold. Who knows? That's hyperinflation. Interest rates have to spike to the moon to compensate. And now you have a villain to point to. It was those bastards. It was Xi Jinping and OPEC and Putin. They did this to us. And now you reset the system. This is the great reset. This is that moment. And now instead of the Fed and the government having to fall on the sword for foolish, irresponsible monetary policy and being the horrible steward of the world reserve currency, now it's a villain that did this to us. And I think it's coming. I do. I swear to God, I think it's coming. And this is about as close as I've ever seen to it happening, when the UAE, who just joined BRICS along with Saudi Arabia, you don't think they're talking? Hey, we're not taking dollars anymore. That's the very beginning of the door closing on the US dollar being the sole settlement currency for oil. It's a big deal.
Do you think I made a video about this as well. I think I sent you something about this. Do you think it's possible for the government to confiscate people's silver? Because I mean, like they did it with gold, Executive Order 6102, which, by the way, guys, they've done it with silver before as well. Executive Order 6814, 1934. The same thing. Give us your silver. You pay a $10,000 fine, 10 years imprisonment, or both. Everyone's like, wait, no, that was Executive Order 6102. Yeah, 1933. That was the truth with gold. But guess what? A year later, he did the same exact thing with silver, same punishments. Just nobody knows about that one because the Executive Order
Yep,
6102
you're
was the
right.
most popular.
You're
Same
right.
one, same thing with silver.
And that is him, Roosevelt, right there. That is the executive order. No, I don't. I think that the unintended consequences would be too severe. Um, in 1933, everyone owned gold and silver. Everyone, because it was money. It
Yep.
was tender, um, and there was a different sense of patriotism in the United States then, and a trust in the government to do the right thing.
Mm.
Um, and part of me believes that's why you have GLD and SLV. You got SLV being basically the largest stockpile of silver in the world that is administered by BlackRock and JP Morgan, two of the biggest nefarious entities on the planet.
Yeah.
JP Morgan, who paid a $920 million fine for suppressing the market, is still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust.
And their employees getting sent to prison.
Yeah, and
Like no X.
HSBC, for who may have paid more fines than any commercial bank, the custodian of GLD. So, you create two funds or several ETFs that siphon in all the money because the advisors, they don't want to let their clients buy physical metal because it comes out of their money under management. And once the money comes out of under management, as now everyone gets free trades, they're no longer stockbrokers where they make trades, money on each trade, they're money managers. So anything under the umbrella, they get a percentage of. Well, if it leaves the umbrella, well, no, that's bad. So they'll tell them to buy GLD and SLV or PSLV, PHYS, or whatever it may be. It's an ETF that's still under management. Well, how much easier? And if you read the prospectus on PSLV and GLD in particular, um, pages 6 through 12, I think, titled Risk Factors, you'd never own the damn thing ever. You'd sell it in 10 seconds. But really, you can't take possession of it unless you're an authorized participant, basically, and take huge amounts of it. It's like the commercial banks. And they'll close that loophole too. But the bottom line is that they could come in on a Friday night, take everyone's metal out of GLD and SLV, pay everyone dollars that's now in their money market account and say, what? We didn't do it. Roosevelt did. We just closed these two ETFs, what the prospectus allows us to do. You want to buy gold and silver, call Miles Franklin or call Money Metals Exchange or call another company. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's not illegal to own physical in this country. They would have their cake and be able to eat it too, where SLV is the largest stockpile held by JP. I mean, come on. Instead of going door to door, people who own precious metals are typically fans of the Second Amendment and not patriotic the way they used to be. And so I would say to you that the consequences of the land of the free and the supposed world reserve currency and free markets would do something like that, would confiscate gold, activate eminent domain the way Venezuela did. It would be the end of this country in every respect. And we would have bigger problems to worry about at that point. So no, I think they can take the ETFs, have the lion's share of what they need held in one central location without having to, go door to door and do that. They could also, I guess, in theory, take the metals held in IRAs. I hate saying that, but I think in theory they could. This is one of the reasons why people say, hold it in your possession if you can. If not, make sure it is segregated in your name in a reputable depository like our Brinks program. Everything is 100% segregated. And that's really important. You don't ever want to do commingled or pooled. You want to have direct title to it, unencumbered in your name. So, I don't think that'll happen this time. I think they'll take the ETFs instead.
Real quick, I wanted to bring that to light because you guys know Andy Schekman and I by now. And if you are someone that cannot physically hold it, you do not want to put your trust into someone that you don't genuinely know. Even if you talk to him, time and time through email or whatever, like Andy personally, like he's a genuinely good person, and if anything even were to happen, he will fix it, God forbid. But that's another reason I think it's important that I am able to offer you guys a business relationship through him. Because if you cannot physically hold it, that is already somewhat dangerous itself. So going with Andy makes it a little safer, in my opinion, just to put it, as bluntly as possible.
And I
You
appreciate
know,
that. I do, and that's
I
why
wouldn't trust anyone else. If I had to hold it online, I would not go through anyone else besides you.
I love you
Honestly.
saying that, and that means a lot to me. We've done this for 34 years without a material customer complaint. I've pissed people
Yeah.
off, try to make it right. I've made mistakes, I try to make it right. But we haven't had a material complaint in 34 years and $9 billion in transactions, and um, we'll continue to strive for that. And I often say I hate the fact that people have become so cynical, where you can't believe that good intentions and capitalistic intentions go
Yeah.
hand in hand.
I
Where
never understand why people can't like that always baffles me. I guess the people who think that are the ones that aren't like us. I mean,
well, they're not entrepreneurial.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can want to build a business that your daughter or my kids are proud of, and put food on the table while still being fair and have good intentions. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't have to be mutually exclusive, and I think that's a big compliment you gave me, and I appreciate that. And that's also why for our storage program, I only use bricks. It's a third party. They are very regimented. They are very meticulous, and um, you don't want to allow, in my opinion, the company you purchase from to be the company that is storing it for you in their own vault. I could do that, but I don't. Instead, I use Brinks where it is a third party, where it is fully insured, where it is fully segregated, where there is a wall between us and the ability to access that. And that's the most important thing. And if you
That's a good
have,
point.
you could have 100 grand worth of gold would be right now less than 50 ounces. You're talking 2 pounds. You could have that in your pockets, and no one would know. You might have some droopy drawers, but again, you're talking very little weight. 100 grand in silver, however, is 400 pounds. Well, and if you continue to purchase it, um, it becomes logistically challenging for some people. So if you have to choose storage, I believe we have the best storage program in America. We are the envy of the storage industry. We have worldwide exclusives that Brinks has offered us that no one else has, including fixed rates, including locations in North America that no one else has, including the only safe deposit box program in a Brinks facility in North America. So we're very proud of our relationship with them, but I worked with them, or I chose them because they're the preeminent name in vaulting. And in a world of imperfect choices, to me, it's as good as you're going to find.
Would you ever think about running for president?
No, I inhaled. Oh, I
I feel like so many people will vote for you. I've actually got a lot of comments from people like that, like Andy for president.
no,
Oh man.
I got way too many skeletons in my closet. I was a crazy young guy. It's amazing I'm still alive. You're sweet to say that. I
My
I
audience.
I no, I'm not qualified for that. I think that nor is our current president, by the way, in my own
Right.
humble opinion. But um, I think that common sense is lacking in a lot of
Yeah.
places these days, and I appreciate you saying that. But no, I will tell you that Dean Phillips from Minneapolis, who's running now on the Democratic ticket, is a guy I played softball with for years, and a guy I've known most of my life, and comes from an incredibly wealthy family. They owned Phillips Liquor, and he developed on his own Talenti ice cream, and incredibly talented, really really solid guy. So that's the closest I'll get. I bet if he actually became president, which I don't think he will, but he's running, I could call him. I could call him right here on this show, and he'd probably answer.
That
So
would be
at
awesome.
least I know someone in high places, but no, I'm not
Yeah.
qualified for it. But you're sweet
Yeah.
for